shall not dull the shining day, whose gleam our songs will e'er renew. And as years go by, dear William and Mary, thy fame will never cease. But each new year rejoice to see thy children's praise to thee increase. We honor thee not for our gain, but to make known thy majesty, thy truth and courage that remains, however harsh the fates may be. As through troublous years, dear William and Mary, our country fought, so thou hast fought, and won and lived to hear thy children singing to thee now.
Please be seated. Good evening. My name is Marilyn Medietta, and I'm a proud member of the class of 1975, and it's my privilege to serve as the CEO of the William and Mary Alumni Association. Tonight, on behalf of the Alumni Association and all William and Mary alumni, we honor those members of our tribe family who have passed in the previous year and sleep in resting places around the world. This ceremony means so much to all of us, especially with the challenges of the last 18 months. And it's an honor for me to be here to celebrate the cherished contributions of those we remember here this evening. Each of them gave us something only they could give. These members of our community spent an important part of their youth along these paths and on the playing fields of our beloved university, and lived their lives following the tradition of service and action exemplified by those who went before them. At William and Mary, they formed treasured memories and built relationships that lasted a lifetime. We're proud to have their families and friends here with us today, and we're also pleased to provide this recording of the ceremony following Alumni Weekend on Monday for the other members who were not able to be with us today. This program is important and special to all of us at William & Mary, and we're honored to have President Catherine Rowe with us here this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a warm William & Mary welcome for President Catherine A. Rowe.
Thank you, Marilyn. Good evening. I'm so honored to be here tonight with you. William & Mary has many, many traditions. We do traditions, we do our celebrations, our ceremonies so well here. And this is among the most solemn and in many ways the most important. We did it well remotely when we had to, and it means so much to be doing it in person in this space now. We gather holding close the memories of loved ones who have passed since we were last here together in person for this ceremony 2 years ago. Since then, more than 1,100 members of our William & Mary community have passed. They represent alumni from the undergraduate classes of 1935 to 2021, 86 years, as well as graduate alumni, faculty, staff, students, and friends of the university, neighbors. The losses of the past year have been compounded by the shared weight and isolation of pandemic. There's a Jewish blessing for mourners, and I'll give you a contemporary translation that I find both beautiful and sustaining in its directness about death and mourning, in the way that it calls us into a human community that shares this experience of loss over and over, and to a community of care. This is the path that has existed from the time of creation and will exist forever. Many have drunk from it, and many will yet drink. As was the first meal, so shall be the last. May the Master of Comfort comfort you. Blessed are those who comfort the mourners. Every individual who's come to William & Mary has left their mark on this 328-year-old institution, and when we ring the Wren bell, as you have been hearing so beautifully just a few moments ago, when we ring the Wren bell, we celebrate their unique contributions, their talents, and their care. We are a community here today in part because we've been blessed by their lives. 2 years ago, I started a tradition of reading Shakespeare's Sonnet 30. It's one of the great solaces, I think, to hear words of beauty, of elegy, spoken aloud, spoken in company with others. This is a poem that's close to my heart, in part because the poet gives such an intimate account of loss and because the closing couplet is redemptive. So I am going to read it tonight and invite you to think about the balm that it offers to soothe the deepest sorrow, and I offer it to you as we remember those who have passed. Sonnet 30. When to the sessions of sweet, silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes, new wail, my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, and weep afresh love's long since canceled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell o'er the sad account of forebemoaned moan, which I new pay as if not paid before. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. Over the past year, this community has endured profound loss and grief with grit and resilience. As we hold those we have lost in our hearts, we know that William & Mary will be better for them. They will always be a part of William & Mary's story. That is the commitment that we make to them, to their memory. Thank you.
Thank you, President Rowe, and our magnificent choir under the direction of Daniel Parks will now perform Road Home by Stephen Paulus. This is a traditional folk song, and its simple yet sincere message speaks of being lost and wandering and finding your way home.
Tell me where
Thank you, choir. That was simply beautiful and certainly a wonderful example of the tremendous talent of our students. It's now my honor to introduce Anna Hatfield, who's the president of the William & Mary Alumni Association and a proud member of her class, the class of 1996. Please join me in welcoming Anna.
Good evening. We are sincerely grateful to see all of you here tonight to help us honor those members of our William & Mary family whom we have lost. This year, we are expanding our tradition to honor all those that have passed since the last time we gathered in person 2 years ago. You will see the names of everyone we are honoring tonight in your programs. So much about our world has changed since we came together here in the Wren courtyard for this ceremony in 2019. The pandemic has changed our lives in countless ways, and so many of us mourn the loss of loved ones taken from us by COVID-19. We also lost the ability to gather together to grieve, to honor the traditions and customs that help make us whole. We are thankful today that our community can come together, remember these very special people, and pay tribute to the influence they have had on our lives. Though we will miss them dearly, they will always hold a special and valued place in our hearts and in the heart of this university. Here to offer us some words of solace and encouragement is Reverend Lisa Green, class of 1983. She is Associate Rector of St. Martin's, not far from here on Jamestown Road. In addition to receiving her degree from William & Mary, she graduated from Drew Theological Seminary in 2007. She has served several churches and was Associate Director of Interweave, an interfaith spirituality and wellness center in New Jersey. Thank you for being with us today, Lisa.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to President Rowe and Marilyn, fellow alumni, faculty, students, family, and friends of the university. It's an honor to offer some reflections as we gather once again in person to remember those we love but see no longer, members of our William & Mary community who have died in the last 2 years. We're gathered both in grief, the natural pain of separation from those we love, and in gratitude for their lives, for the time we shared, long or all too short, gratitude for what they gave us, what death cannot take away. As Anna said, our lives continue to be upended by the pandemic in ways we could never have imagined 2 years ago. We are, as one prayer puts it, in the midst of things we cannot understand, both globally and personally. The health crisis, political division, economic instability, extreme weather, racial injustice, conflict, and violence in our country and our world continue to take a toll. And the death of someone we love at any age, expected or unexpected, is also a thing we cannot understand. In our Episcopal burial service, we say that life is changed, not ended. And whatever you may believe about that for those who have died, it's certainly true for those of us who mourn. Life is changed by the loss of the family member or friend we're here tonight to honor. And paradoxically and painfully, life goes on. Narrative wreckage, Arthur Frank calls it in his book, The Wounded Storyteller. The present is no longer what the past was supposed to lead up to, and the future is scarcely thinkable. You said solace and encouragement, right? So in that perplexity, in our longing for meaning or a sense of connection, in our shared sorrow, it is such a comfort to be together here tonight, to light candles, to listen to beautiful music, to ring the bell, to remember and honor those we have lost. It's probably our most ancient human ritual, the common denominator, the thing we all share but rarely talk about, saying goodbye to someone whose life mattered to us. What makes this remembering so powerful, what helps carry us through the painful present and allows us, however slowly and tentatively, to start weaving a new future, is not only death's universality, but also its particularity. When the bell tolls again in a few minutes, each of us will be remembering a beloved member of the tribe, a parent, sibling, spouse, child, relative, classmate, professor, colleague, friend. We remember the first time we saw them, a milestone, high or low points, funny stories, little everyday moments of soul connection, the last time we saw them. We remember them in their uniqueness, their quirky individuality, what John Updike calls their own brand of magic, which took a whole life to develop and market. Remembering that magic, keeping it alive, defies the distance between us and those who have gone before. Our separation is heartbreakingly real, but it's also somehow an illusion, no match for the love that is as strong as death. We're still connected, and remembrance is resistance, a testimony to their mysterious but palpable presence in our lives, especially in places and times when we miss them the most. But we have to look with our hearts. As the fox tells the little prince, the essential is invisible to the eyes. We can also stay connected by consciously taking on a quality our loved ones embodied: generosity, assertiveness, friendliness, curiosity, kindness. Or by supporting a cause they cared about, maybe every year on their birthday, or the anniversary of the day they died, or doing something they enjoyed. There are 100,000 species of love, writes Richard Powers in The Overstory, separately invented, each more ingenious than the last, and every one of them keeps making things. Yet, as important as that particularity of our loved ones and our memories of them is our experience of death's universality. It's not just the way of all flesh, it's the way of all the earth, which coincidentally I just learned is a better translation of that Hebrew phrase found a couple of times in the Bible. Coincidentally, because the way of all the earth came alive to me this summer when I read Powers' eye and heart-opening novel. Read The Overstory, if you haven't yet. It will change you. Its 500 pages are as sprawling and dense as the forests that are some of its central characters. It will slow you down and awaken you to what is unseen and essential. True comfort, solace, and encouragement. We are not alone. We are woven into a collaborative community, bound together with all other living things, part of a story so long and broad that, as Powers writes, even death is nothing to lose sleep over. Paraphrasing a line from his new novel, Bewilderment, to recognize the interdependence and benevolence that is our birthright is to see kin everywhere, to take part in a giant experiment that doesn't end with you, and to feel loved from beyond the grave. Another of the Overstory's central characters is inspired by a professor of forest ecology at the University of British Columbia, Dr. Suzanne Simard. Her work proves that trees communicate with each other using some of the same biochemicals that carry messages in our own bodies. that a forest is a single organism wired for wisdom and care. She's been called the discoverer of the wood wide web. When I heard her in an On Being interview last month talking about her new book, Finding the Mother Tree, I knew I'd want to share her words with you tonight. We can think of an ecosystem of wolves, caribou, trees, and fungi creating biodiversity, just as an orchestra of woodwind, brass, percussion, and string musicians assemble into a symphony, she said. Or how our brains, composed of neurons, axons, and neurotransmitters, produce thought and compassion. Or the way brothers and sisters join to overcome a trauma like illness and death, the whole greater than the sum of its parts. Thank you for being part of that synergy tonight, for coming home to our alma mater, our own mother tree, to remember and embody that stronger reality that binds us together across time and space, the love that came before us and will remain after us, that upholds and surrounds and sustains us, that will never let us go. Thank you.
The choir will now perform Shenandoah, which is a former choir member myself, is very near and dear to my heart and always puts the finishing touch on a beautiful ceremony like this evening.
Thank you, Lisa, for being here and sharing such an inspiring message with us today. And thank you again to the choir for lending their beautiful voices for our ceremony tonight. The sunset ceremony has been a treasured William & Mary tradition for nearly 4 decades and has taken on a variety of forms as our community has grown. This year we mourn for the almost 1,100 members of our tribe family who have passed since we last gathered together at homecoming in 2019. Each person we remember this evening shined so brightly in life and in their love for this special place, and their warmth remains with us in the memories we hold dear. We commemorate them with the lighting of candles. To assist us in honoring those who have passed, Bruce Oliver, class of 1968 and chair of the Old Guard Council, and Joe O'Brien, class of 2023 and philanthropy chair for Students for University Advancement, will light the memorial candles as we reflect on the lives of those we have lost. Please join me in a moment of silence before we begin. In honor of our beloved alumni from the classes of the 1930s and 40s. In honor of our beloved alumni from the classes of the 1950s. In honor of our beloved alumni from the classes of the 1960s. In honor of our beloved alumni from the classes of the 1970s. In honor of our beloved alumni from the classes of the 1980s and 1990s. In honor of our beloved alumni from the classes since the 2000s. In honor of our beloved alumni from the graduate classes. In honor of faculty, staff, students, and friends of the university. and in honor of all of our William and Mary family members who have gone before us. The choir will now lead us in singing our alma mater, the first and final verses, which you will find in your program. Our alma mater sounds so beautiful when we sing it together, so please join me in singing loudly and proudly, no matter what you think your singing abilities are. We are all family here. Following the singing of our alma mater, our ceremony will conclude. Thank you for being with us this evening.